Okay, I have to edit next week's video, which is really going to be a lot of work, and I'm not feeling super motivated right now, so I'll just start that this weekend when I have more energy. What the? Who are you? I'm you from this weekend. How'd you get? Who cares? Stop overestimating the difference between you and me. We're the same person, just a few days apart. I'm not any more motivated to edit this video than you are. I just thought if I had more sleep, maybe I'd have more energy. Listen, there will always be a reason to put things off, but if you want to get things done, you have to focus on why you should do the work, not why you shouldn't. Damn, you're right. You know, there is one difference between me and you, though. I don't slap people nearly as much as you. Alright, that's it. No matter how driven you are, or how high you set your goals, if you're human, you probably struggle with procrastination. And for many of us, this problem has only gotten worse as we've begun working from home. Now, not only do we have the urge to put off our work, but we're also surrounded by 100 other things that we can do instead of our work. Like clean the dishes, run the laundry, grab a snack, the list goes on. And that's one of the things that makes procrastination so dangerous. We can be productive and still be putting off our most important or most challenging work. I've been struggling with this lately, especially when it comes to making videos, since there's no one else to hold me accountable or keep me on track. Unless, of course, I get another visit from future me. And since we all seem to struggle with procrastination, I wanted to figure out why, with the hope that understanding what causes us to procrastinate in the first place might help me figure out what steps we can take to overcome it in the future. After doing some digging, I found that there are 3 major reasons why we tend to procrastinate, according to science. Reason number 1 is a phenomenon known as the amygdala hijack. This is when a part of our brain called the amygdala, which is right back here and is responsible for regulating emotions like fear and aggression, overrides our prefrontal cortex, which is right here, just behind your forehead, and is responsible for rational thinking and decision making. This process starts when we look at a task and we think to ourselves, this is too hard, or this is going to take forever, or I'm not good enough to do this. These negative thoughts trigger a response from our amygdala because our brain starts to identify the task as a threat to our self-esteem and well-being. And once our brain views the task as a threat, we naturally want to avoid it at all costs. Now, luckily, half the solution to this problem is simply to be aware of the fact that it's a problem in the first place. Awareness allows us to identify when our brain starts to view a task as a threat, and we know when this happens because we start engaging in negative self-talk and feeling anxious about things on our to-do list. And when we feel this start to happen, we can implement the second half of our solution, which is to give those negative thoughts and feelings a name. Stephen Pressfield calls them resistance, James Clear calls them friction. You can call them whatever you want. The idea is that by giving them a name, we transform them from something abstract, like a feeling of anxiety, into something more concrete, like resistance, which our brain can much more easily understand and therefore much more easily overcome. And that brings us to the second reason why we procrastinate, which is the fact that we're wired for instant gratification. This goes way back to when we had to fight every day to survive, and we benefited much more from doing things immediately rather than waiting because there was a pretty decent chance that we wouldn't make it to the end of the week. And to encourage us to take action, our brain flooded itself with dopamine, aka the feel-good chemical, anytime we did something favorable for our survival, like eat a sugary food. But this has become somewhat of a problem because for most of us, survival is no longer an everyday battle, but our brains are still wired like it is. Nowadays, the things that benefit us most, like saving money, working on a project, or going to the gym, don't offer instant gratification. The rewards for these actions are delayed, so we don't get that hit of dopamine like we do when we check our phones, or we buy new clothes, or we absolutely pound a hamburger. Hey, it's my cheat day. And to make it worse, social media and tech companies are very aware of this, and they've designed their products to elicit dopamine while we use them, which, just like drugs, keeps us hooked and makes it much more difficult to choose meaningful tasks over easy ones because our brains have started to expect that hit of dopamine more and more frequently. Now, I have good news and bad news here. The bad news is that our willpower is not strong enough to overcome years and years of evolution. The good news is that the solution to this problem is simple. We don't have to overcome years of evolution. In fact, we can work with it rather than against it. The way we do this is by immediately rewarding ourselves for our most important work. This allows us to make the gratification for that work instant rather than delayed, which elicits dopamine and tells our brains that this action is worth taking again in the future. Some examples of this would be enjoying a smoothie immediately after a workout, or tracking your savings on a chart after making a deposit. I know. I should have become an artist. One way I've implemented this into my life is by making my coffee after I finish my morning to-do list. This has made getting started each day much easier because I love my morning coffee, and now I've started to associate that with finishing my morning tasks. One thing to note about this solution is that I recommend making your reward part of your routine and keeping it as healthy as possible. If you go out of your way to reward yourself with pizza after every workout, you're completely defeating the purpose of working out in the first place. And finally, the third reason why we struggle with procrastination is because we feel seriously disconnected from our future self. I recently talked about this in my weekly newsletter, Free Thoughts Thursday, which you can sign up for at Cascella.com or via the link below. And just as a quick note, you have to confirm your email address if you want to officially be subscribed. There are two main culprits that contribute to this disconnection between our current self and our future self. The first one is something known as our present bias. This refers to the fact that we are much more focused on who we are today than who we will be in the future. But the disconnection actually goes deeper than that. It turns out that our brains have a hard time even viewing our future selves as us at all. And this is something known as the empathy gap. A study from 2019 shows that we process information about our current self and our future self in completely different parts of our brain. And the part that processes information about our future self is the same part that processes information about complete strangers. This directly impacts our tendency to procrastinate because when we put off important tasks, we reward our current self with comfort and relief by adding anxiety and stress to our future self. And since we view our current selves as us and our future selves as someone else, it's no wonder why we choose to do things that feel good in the moment, even if they might cost us later on. Thankfully, this time I only have good news. Research tells us that we can actually strengthen the connection between our current self and our future self, and that doing so will help us make decisions that may be challenging in the moment, but will pay off later on. One way to do this is by developing a relationship with your future self. Studies show that the more vividly you picture who you are in the future, the smaller the empathy gap between current you and future you becomes. There are a number of ways to develop a relationship with your future self, but the best way that I've found, aside from looking at virtual reality pictures of you when you're 75 years old, is to create a vision of who you are and what your life looks like in a few years. And I have a whole video about how to create a vision for yourself. So if you want more details on how to do that, you can watch that video right up here or via the link below. And again, the more detailed the vision, the better the relationship between current you and future you. We all struggle with procrastination from time to time, and I think trying to eliminate it from our lives completely is unrealistic. But hopefully, understanding why it's a problem in the first place and putting the 3 solutions that we talked about in this video into practice will help you push past it and minimize its damage moving forward. If you liked this video, then you might also benefit from this one here, where I talk about why boredom can actually be good for you. Please go ahead and do all the YouTube stuff. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see stuff like this in the future, and please leave a comment down below. I love interacting with you guys, and I truly value your feedback. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. Live your life to the fullest, and I'll see you in the next one.